I'm Connell McShane, and today for Cheryl Casoni, who's on assignment, and we're joined for the hour by Jim Frischling, co-founder and president of NewOak Capital here in New York, and our very own Rebecca Diamond is here as well. Former U.S. Attorney General Dick Thornburgh joining us from inside the Beltway.
Because of the pressure that comes from families that are losing their livelihoods.
Want to throw something out there, Jim?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, it seems like a very, there's a difficult balance here, and if this is going to be a crime scene, then you have the very company accused of committing the crime as the best source to help solve the issue. So do you think with the agreement of the fund and what took place in Washington, is the political rhetoric or volume, was that the loudest we're going to see it, and now we're going to get back to solving the issue, or should we expect the volume to continue to escalate?
Well, frankly, my personal hope from a legal point of view is that we let the system play it out, because you've got investigators out there from the Coast Guard, from the EPA, from the FBI. You'll probably have a grand jury convened. You're going to have Mr. Feinberg having to evaluate a whole series of claims. You've got 230 lawsuits as of today out there, and all those are designed to develop what the facts were. And once we have the facts, then, of course, we can make some real determination as to what legal liability attaches.
What should we take away? Let me just ask you, Jim, real quick, and then Rebecca wants to jump in as well, about solar as an investment, in terms of how you guys have been looking at it. We talk about solar stocks all the time as trades, but, you know, adding to what's been said here in terms of the longer-term prospects now that, you know, what's happened has happened in the Gulf.
Well, I guess I'll try to answer your question almost with a question to Mr. Rooney.
Sure.
Chief of Staff Rahm Emanuel made a comment along the lines of, you don't let a crisis go to waste,
great opportunity.
which is a great opportunity to advance certain measures. And I was going to ask if you think that is this moment. And the other hand, I hear stories or I hear information out of Spain, for example, of the cost of the job creation, but the cost and the government subsidies required of the green jobs, and that I guess would make it somewhat of a still remains a concern of mine. So you have the opportunity as Chief of Staff Emanuel's talking about, and then you have the cost, which I guess makes me more concerned. But I'd rather listen to the expert here.
Sure.
Is this the opportunity really for you, your company, and the solar sector?
Yeah, I think you make a great point. I mean, the quote was, you don't let a good crisis go by, or what have you. The fact of the matter is, what the crisis will cause us all to do is go back and look at our baseline assumptions. You know, what have we assumed about fossil fuels? And when we do that, what we're going to do is look at the reports like the National Academy of Sciences with a very sober eye, and we're going to begin to understand that the kinds of costs that are hidden with coal and oil are powerful. By the way, the most expensive cost is often healthcare. So if you look at the National Academy of Sciences, and I'm not talking global warming or any soft issues like that, I'm talking the real cost of healthcare. So if you take a look at the United States, one of the things that plagues the United States right now is skyrocketing healthcare costs.
Right.
If you believe the National Academy of Sciences, a big dose of what's going on is the fact that we burn very dirty fuels. And again, I'm not talking global warming, I'm talking healthcare. So when we look at expenses in countries like Spain, can you go too far? Absolutely. Any subsidy can go too far. So the capitalist in me and the free market economist in me says, let's just look at the costs exactly as they are, and let's go immediately to the least cost. And I'm confident that what we're going to find out by having a sober look after a crisis like this is that solar is the way to go.
All right, we're going to run here, Tom. But Tom Rooney, thank you very much for coming on with us. Let's do another data check here and check some numbers for you. You see what's happening in stocks today. Up 10 on the Dow, S&P's flat, Nasdaq's down a little. Of course, gold's been a big story. We're following oil as well. Jim Frischling, we were just talking to the Lebenthals, which was great. There's oil at about 77. Let me let you weigh in on how you see the world right now, how you see these markets, with gold hitting another record high today.
Sure, and I am liking gold, but in terms of some of the stocks that we've been looking at, I think somewhat range-bound. And I think the news today and the news...
All summer?
Well, it's going to be a quiet period, and I think overall I would be looking to be adding positions of companies that you've been following, companies that have good borders or moats around their business and good dividends, and I'd be doing it on downturns as opposed to trying to chase these things. I don't think this market's going to run away from anybody. I think there's still a lot of talk about Europe. I think we have our own unemployment issue, consumer spending. So I don't think this market runs away from you. So on downturns, I think there's an opportunity to kind of add to positions.
About stocks that have pulled back, right, Rebecca, like the BPs of the world, and when's the right time to you know, dip a toe in the water.
Right, and you do have a lot of guests who come on and say that it could be a buying opportunity because maybe it will survive this, like Exxon Valdez did. Had you bought during their downturn, you would have been in good shape now. And there's this speculation that BP may do a bond offering, which would bode well for them as well to raise money.
I actually have some breaking BP news. Let me go to this, and then we'll continue in a moment. This is coming from the chairman of the company, Carl Thornburgh, who's talking with our partners at Sky News, doing an interview right now, and apparently he just told them that BP CEO Tony Hayward is going to hand off operations in the Gulf oil spill. Again, this coming from a Sky News interview. Here's a shot of it with the chairman that's going on right now at Sky News over in the UK, that Tony Hayward's going to hand off the operations. Quite frankly, I don't know exactly what that means or to whom he would hand over the operations to, but the interview is ongoing. We will bring you more details of it and the clarification as to what the chairman meant in his comments in just a few moments. But you can see he's still speaking there. Tony Hayward's been under a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Yesterday on Capitol Hill was a great example of that.
And I think it's a good move because he is not looking well in the public eye. So if you have this fresh face, maybe who's a stronger personality, who can handle this crisis a little bit better.
But how does the CEO hand off anything? Are you still the CEO?
Well, it's such a big project. He can say, look, I still need to run BP. This is still a thriving company with a lot of operations worldwide. So and the oil spill, also the leak, is a big deal as well. So let me hand that off to somebody who can devote their attention to it full time.
What do you say about that real quick, Jim?
I mean, I think some of the issues BP's been facing have been PR related. So again, it doesn't solve the crisis. It doesn't change the fact that the well is still leaking. But I think that the tide had turned very much against the CEO.
Right.
So maybe changing the guard is not a bad move.
To Rebecca's point, you hand over the day-to-day operations at least, and then you move on from there. More details on that Sky News interview as time goes on here. But I want to move on back to this breaking BP news that we told you about a moment ago. The chairman, Carl Thornburgh, doing that interview with our sister network in the UK, Sky News, moments ago, telling Sky News that CEO Tony Hayward of BP is handing over the day-to-day operations of the cleanup in the Gulf, and he's doing it to a managing director at BP and a longtime BP employee by the name of Robert Dudley, or Bob Dudley. So Robert Dudley takes over the day-to-day operations. He's somebody, from what I understand, is an American, but he's worked overseas, guys, as well. He was based in Russia for a few years, so obviously a veteran of the oil industry. But what does it do for BP, Jim, in your view, to hand over the day-to-day operations from Hayward to this guy Dudley?
I mean, pure speculation, but I certainly think that this project or this assignment needed a change.
Yeah.
And I guess in talking off air, I'm wondering if this possibly puts Mr. Hayward one step closer to actually exiting at a later date or being asked.
One foot out the other door.
Possibly.
And the question is what happens to the other foot, I guess. But what do you think,
actually, I see it the other way. This saves his job, at least for now. This way, he says, okay, put somebody else in the spotlight. Let somebody else do the damage control and get all the criticism, and let me go back to the comforts of my office saying that I'm going to run BP day-to-day operations. So it kind of insulates him.
It gets Tony Hayward off TV, which is probably what they wanted in the short term anyway. Brian Sullivan's still on TV, and he's coming up next right after this Fox Business Brief with Adam Shapiro.